Hello, everyone, and welcome to Small Screen Science, the podcast where we explore the science behind your favourite TV shows. I'm Karen.
I'm Emma, and this week we're coming to you live from Cardiff Science Festival. Thanks very much for having us. Hello. And we're going to be looking at the science behind one of my all-time favourite TV shows, the incredibly popular US sitcom, The Office: An American Workplace.
Absolutely, we are.
Nice, well done.
Yeah.
I got it. Let's explain what we're doing there.
So in all of our podcast episodes, what we do is we try and fit in as many quotes from the shows as we possibly can. And what we'd like you to do is see if you can spot them for us. Give us a shout out in the chat when you spot them, and we'll see how many you get. Do engage with us in the chat because we'd love to hear from you.
We've got a couple of questions primed in, just like our badly shoehorned in show quotes. No, I mean, I've already confessed that it's my favourite TV show. I was thinking hard about this earlier today, and I don't think there's anything else that I love more. I almost don't want to admit to how many times I've seen the whole thing through, but I would say that it's upward of 10, apart from maybe kind of season 8 when Steve Carell leaves, and it all gets a bit weird. But they bring it back home with the original writers and things for season 9 so that it does all end up being quite a satisfying arc. But Karen, I mean, what about you? I'm clearly a bit of an Office nerd here. Are you? Is it part of your world, part of your realm?
I love the American Office, I have to say. I think it's absolutely brilliant, really, really good writing. The British version I found really, really difficult to watch. It was very cringy for me.
Yeah.
I found it difficult. And it was particularly, obviously, David Brent's character was very cringy. It was very cringe comedy for me. And actually, when we were looking at the science behind the show, because that's what we do, when we looked at it, there's actually a science behind that type of cringe comedy. So it's all about, it's all about empathy. So what's happening is you are feeling empathetic towards the characters around David Brent. So you probably know someone a little bit like that in the office,
not as bad.
Not as bad, not as extreme. But you recognize some of the characteristics and you're kind of cringing because you're feeling empathy with the characters as though you're actually there. And it's a little bit the same if you're watching something like The Inbetweeners or Derry Girls and you're kind of feeling what it was like to be a teenager or an adolescent and being in those situations, you're feeling empathy for the characters.
Who is your favourite character then? And actually, if anyone is watching, let us know who yours are as well. We'll see if they match up. Karen, who's your favourite character?
Well, obviously Dwight.
I thought that you'd go for Dwight. To be fair, his writing is incredible. Like the way they've written his character, and he gets some of the best lines as well. And you'll see some of them through this script. But he's brilliant. That's a good choice.
Yeah. How about you?
I think that it's got to be Jim. And not just because I think that there's a chance he's my soulmate, but I think because he's just I think him and Power are kind of the glue of the whole show. He's so kind, he's so empathetic, he's fun, and he's not your typical hero, but he is a hero, you know? He's just a nice, normal guy who is celebrated for being nice.
And he's got lots of in-jokes with you as well, you know, the way when he talks to camera and you're thinking, that's the case. Oh, hello, Jennifer. Michael and Dwight. Good choice. Good choice. I'm there with you.
Oh, it depends on the season as to whether I like Michael. He's too cringe for me to start with, but they tone the writing down and then he becomes much, much more lovable. Yeah.
And I think that's down to Jim and Pam, though, isn't it? The way they kind of mould his character. So that's really, really good.
They do. So let's have a look. There's been a resurgence of everyone watching The Office again, and I think a lot of that has to do with nostalgia. So The Office was actually the most streamed show in America in 2020, even though it had finished nearly a decade before that. And Americans cumulatively, get this, binged 57 billion minutes of it in that one year.
I can't even comprehend
that is. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's Creed's age. Who knows? Rian,
Rian will be happy about that because they've said Creed's their favourite.
Yeah, but I think one of the things about why it was so popular was partly the year and partly the nostalgia element to it. So obviously 2020, we all know that something fairly big happened in that year, and maybe we all spent a lot more time at home. So a lot of us were watching a lot more TV, but this kind of resurgence of nostalgic TV came back, and we were all trying to live in a way back in this time pre-pandemic, and just kind of re-indulging ourselves in these old school comedies. Like Friends was also super popular that year. And there's a little bit of science behind maybe why we were indulging in comedies, and that's because actually comedy works for us on multiple levels in terms of the science of it actually being good for us, which is really cool. So laughter helps to lower our stress, which of course we were all feeling quite a lot of at the time, and it releases positive hormones like dopamine. So there we go. I've got a science backing my office addiction. So I think that's pretty good.
Cool. So one of the things that they do in the American Office, actually, every single series is the Dundie Awards, which are brilliant. So Michael hands out all these random Dundie Awards. So we had a chat, didn't we, before the show about, what maybe our Dundie Award would be. And we'd like the audience, we'd like you to chip in as well about what your Dundie would be, because I would be either the nerdiest geek or the geekiest nerd. I'm not sure which one.
What's the difference? Which one would you prefer?
I think the geekiest nerd,
it rolls off the tongue quite nicely. Now, I heard that there was a deleted scene, which I was unable to find, that there is a Jim Halpert award somewhere. I don't know what, but I would like that one. But if that one's not in contention, I brought props. I am wearing my whitest sneakers. I'll take the Pam's whitest sneakers award if I'm not allowed the Jim Halpert award.
Perfect. I like it.
Yeah, you didn't know I was going to do that.
No, I didn't.
So what we're going to do in this session is to run through all 9 seasons, stopping off at some of our kind of favourite, not sciencey moments per se, but science adjacent moments from the show. And I think that before we do that, we actually need to start with something that is really obvious, and it's a thread which kind of transcends any particular episode, isn't it? We've got to talk about office relationships.
And I think Jennifer will be pleased with this because she loves Jim and Pam's love story. We have to talk about office romances, don't we? And the science behind, because there is science behind office romance. So obviously there were loads of different romances, though, weren't there? So we got Michael and Jan, Michael and Holly, Angela and Dwight, Angela and Andy, Kelly and Ryan, the classic.
Oh, Kelly and Ryan.
Yeah, but we're obviously going to start with the big guns. We're going to start with Pam and Jim. So there you go, Jennifer, especially for you.
And do you know what? It's interesting. When we were looking into the research of this, we found that actually it's thought between 10 and 20% of people meet their spouse at work, which is quite high to find the person that you marry. I thought that was quite interesting. And actually, I wondered whether this might change now we're all home working. We're not really spending that much time, flirting over the reception desk with anyone, because you can't get the same vibe on Zoom, can you, in Teams?
No, it's not the same. It's not the same at all. And they did another survey, actually, this time in America, kind of in the mid-noughties, and it found that 40% of workers had either dated or had a relationship with a co-worker, which is really interesting. And it was between the ages of 35 and 44. So all of you listening out there, if you're between the ages of 35 and 44, and you're feeling a little something for someone in the office, could be what we're going to talk.
And I've just a quick shout out to Jennifer in the chat. Met her husband in her office.
Wow!
Although Ben has said that he prefers the Jim and Karen relationship, which is a very controversial opinion. Now, well, perhaps Jennifer, this next section might explain to you why you and your husband fell in love. So we're going to have a look at why these office relationships developed. But it's important to say that actually the office was set before social media really erupted in the same way that we use it now. So at the time, the crew were using kind of MySpace in their personal lives. But if the office was redone now, it would look completely different. It would exist in a totally different landscape. We'd have to tackle issues like online dating. Issues like online dating, you know what I mean, topics like online dating, that's not an issue. And so when we were trying to have a look at some of the research into what this was like, actually a lot of the research papers that I could find were looking at things like actually like the ethics of office relationships.
Let's get ethical. I want to get ethical. I'll stop there.
There we go. There's a quote in for you. That was Michael and Holly, not delivered with the same panache, but it's hard to meet their energy. Yes. But yeah, anyway, so we're small screen science. We're not small screen ethics. So actually what I did was depart from Google Scholar and I Googled the exact phrase, the science behind fancying your co-worker. Here's what we found.
You should see some of our searches, honestly. It's hilarious. So we found some interesting insights from psychology, obviously, because that's what you'd expect if we're talking about office romances. And the first one is probably reasonably obvious to us. The fact that if you're in proximity with these people all the time, that's going to have a big impact on whether you're going to develop a relationship with them. And you find you often spend more time with your co-workers than you do with someone you live with or a roommate or something like that. And if you really break down, when we were all in the office, break down how much time you spent at work versus how much quality time you spent at home. And
yeah, because I mean, you don't really get that much day at home, do you? And most of the time you're at home, let's be honest, you're asleep. We're looking at sheer numbers. Now, interestingly, there was some research that came out from the University of Kansas which said it takes about 200 hours to become best friends with someone. So I think that we can assume that even when like the whole series starts, Jim and Pam probably do have at least 200 hours racked up of best friendship, chatting at reception and like pulling pranks on Dwight and things. But that means that not only have they got a really good foundation for a friendship, but also for a proper relationship.
Yeah. And actually they looked at it really closely and tried to figure out, why are there so many? 40% is quite a lot of people to have a relationship, within an office space. Well, hopefully not actually in the office space, although some people do, clearly. And it's actually, when they looked at it, it was all about problem solving. So if you're in close proximity with someone and you're doing problem solving and you're under a lot of stress, you're actually looking at what that person is like under stress, what they're like if they've got a problem to solve. And actually, you can be really attracted to someone if they're dealing with that stress really, really well. So problem solving is definitely sexy, it turns out. So that kind of working together and solving those problems, it gives you that kind of trust, and there's a bit of give and take, and a little bit of intimacy potentially might arise from it.
And it's also thought that the kind of intensity that we experience in work situations, especially if we're under pressure, sometimes this intensity can actually be mistaken for the same kind of intensity we experience in new relationships, and actually can be one of the drivers for starting to feel attached to someone. And so things like intense tasks can help speed up a relationship, like you said, because you're working towards a shared goal. But equally, this slow burn is also very prevalent. So spending years around each other can just kind of slowly drift into a relationship. And if I'm honest, I think both Jim and Pam fit both of these theories quite nicely, because they have spent loads and loads of time together, but they pull so many pranks on Dwight and they manage Michael so much. There is a lot of kind of team building and problem solving between them.
Yeah, definitely. So shall we start exploring some of the key science moments of the show, the science adjacent moments of the show, and answer some of those questions that they throw up?
Absolutely. I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
Kelly Kapoor. She's such an amazing character in the show. I love Kelly. She's my second favorite character, I have to say.
Nice. So Mindy, that plays Kelly, was also one of the writers of the show. So but like, you see it from the very beginning, she's quite like a toned down character, and then eventually she just evolves into what they call she was just Mindy by the end of it. She wrote her into herself, and Kelly just became the most extreme and bonkers character. She's so fun. Yeah,
she's great fun, absolutely brilliant character. So shall we start? Let's start at the beginning. Series 1, episode 1, the pilot.
Yes, let's dive straight in with the first prank that Jim pulls on Dwight, and this is putting his stapler in a bowl of jelly, which is something we also saw in the British office as well when that first aired. So spoons at the ready. We're gonna ask the hard-hitting science questions here. What even is this wobbly food stuff? How does jelly work?
Well, actually, it's quite disgusting. It turns out it's all about gelatin. And gelatin's made from processing the protein collagen. And collagen is connective tissue protein normally found in skin and bones. So basically, to make gelatin, you boil up skin and bones. And pig skin is quite often used because it's about 30% collagen by weight. So if jelly has got gelatin in it, it's clearly not for vegetarians or vegans. No. So boiling up this animal's skin or bones in water, these collagen strands leave the tissues and they react with the water to create the gel, which is gelatin. Ew.
So if we look at the structure of gelatin itself, we can answer kind of what jelly is and why it is the way that it is. So gelatin molecules are really, really long, and they're quite stretchy, and they're capable of stretching quite far without breaking. And they're in triple helix shape. So this is a bit like how we learn that a DNA molecule is a double helix. So it's like a ladder with two long poles and then all these interconnected bonds between them, except in a triple helix, there's three long poles and then it's all twisted. So that's essentially the shape of the gelatin molecule. And what happens when we make jelly ourselves is usually we have a little block of very dense jelly or gelatin, and we add hot water to it, and then we let that set. So what happens when we're adding the hot water is we're denaturing these, and all of these long structures start to become filamentous strands. They start to unravel, and they all break away from each other, and they start to attract the water that you've put in there with it. And the more water they attract, the less is able to then fluidly move through the mixture, and it starts to get a lot thicker and it starts to get a lot harder.
That's what she said.
Had to get that one in somewhere. Well done, Karen. I am your biggest flan.
Nice.
As it cools, these helix structures, they all start to reform, but like they don't reform in the same way as they were in the first place. They all start to get really tangled up together and really messy, and they're so long that they can actually trap lots of water molecules in between them, and it kind of acts like a web and it holds them all in. And because it's like that, it's able to, that's why I guess it's wobble, basically.
And of course, the jelly we eat isn't just gelatin. It's got sweeteners or sugar and food colorings and things like that in it. And we also use gelatin in baking. So if you're making some gravy, thickening a sauce, you can do that. And if you put enough gelatin in, it will thicken it enough to form, this jelly-like structure. But the big question is, that jelly can hold itself up and wobble around. But, could it hold a heavy stapler inside it? Just the normal jelly that you would make and buy.
This is the question. We've not tried it. Maybe we should have done.
We should have done, maybe.
But I think Jim, or rather the props department, probably found or made a jelly with a really high gelatin percentage, because to suspend something as heavy as a stapler within it, you're going to need a lot. You're going to need a lot of those really intertwined gelatin molecules.
Yeah, so maybe that's a job for after the show. Everyone, go away and see if you can put a stapler in some jelly. So the big question of the moment, though, is jelly a solid, a liquid, or is it a gel? So when we put that hot water in, we formed this solution of gelatin, and as it cooled, those water molecules, as we said, get trapped inside this network, these kind of strands or this matrix. So what we've got is a colloid. And this is where one phase of matter is mixed and suspended inside the other. So the water is suspended inside all of these gelatin molecules. And if you take something like marshmallow, that's the same, but it's air suspended inside a matrix. And then mayonnaise is also this kind of matrix, these strands with liquids trapped inside them.
Cool. And did you know there are actually vegetarian alternatives to gelatin? So things like agar, agar and carrageenan are natural gelling agents which we can extract from seaweed.
Yes. And agar you'll recognise probably from, if you've ever done agar plates. So if you've done any microbiology, sometimes in school we'll do things where, you put your hands on the agar to see what horrible things there are growing in your hands.
Things in the lab. Come back a week later and there's all these like rings of green microbes and
Wash your hands, everyone. Wash your hands to happy birthday, as they say.
So I think moving on from series 1 from a scene where Dwight and Jim are at odds, we're going to shuffle over to series 3, episode 19, The Negotiation, where actually we see Dwight leap to Jim's rescue. And this is where Roy comes charging upstairs. He's just found out that his ex-fiancée Pam did kiss Jim, and he's seeing red, and he goes straight in to punch Jim in the face. And Dwight, who is a man known for many things, but one of those being just always carrying really bizarre weapons around with him.
Just grabs them from random places in the office, doesn't
he? He leaps up with a can of pepper spray and just blasts Roy right in the eyes. And of course, that affects everyone else around them in the office.
Well, after all, the eyes are the groin of the face.
It's just such a good line. It's such a good line. And it's kind of true. Like, the eyes are probably the most important and the most easily damaged part of
it is still random. It's really
I like
random.
it. Yeah, as an analogy, I'm here for it.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, I suppose we have to ask the question, what is pepper spray? What does it contain? And actually, it's to do with peppers, as in bell peppers, not pepper as in, salt and pepper. And pepper spray is an aerosol, and it contains I can never say it.
Capsaicin or
Capsaicin.
capsaicin.
You always give me the words I can't say. And this is normally found in chilies and in peppers, and it actually causes temporary blindness. So you can be blinded for around 15 minutes if you have pepper spray sprayed into your face, which is pretty nasty. And if you inhale it as well, it can cause breathing problems. And if you've ever cooked with chili, and done it slightly too hot, and I know I have, you sometimes feel it catching in your throat, and you feel that the breathing being affected. Definitely.
So it does this by dilating all of the capillaries in the eyes, and it also inflames your mucous membrane. So that catches your eyes, your nose, your lungs, and your throat, that's what makes it harder to breathe. And these kind of breathing restrictions can last in some capacity for up to 24 hours. So it's really nasty stuff.
And as a consequence, it's banned in the UK, and it's treated as a firearm. So you can't own, carry, or use it under the Firearms Act of 1968. So it carries the same legal penalties as carrying a gun. So no pepper spray, people, not in the UK.
Yeah. Now the rules are different in the States, as they often seem to be.
Surprise.
And so Dwight he uses it in self-defense in this capacity. And the UK does have legal self-defense sprays, but for the most part, they're not harmful. They're more just designed to mark the attacker with something like invisible ink or like a really long stain that just lasts for ages. So it just makes them harder to track down as opposed to actually causing them harm. Something that was so exciting is that literally this week we had the first case of someone being prosecuted and jailed in the UK for domestic abuse where this forensic marking spray was used, which is just brilliant. I love that we've finally got an example of where it's come into really, really useful capacity, and that opens the doors for so many more things. And essentially it will stay on your skin for up to 6 weeks, or your clothes for even longer. It glows under UV light, and it can be really useful at tying a person to an incident. And I'm just really excited by this news.
Yeah, that's really, really good. But I mean, in the US, you can buy pepper sprays in certain states, but there are limits on things like the size of the canister or the strength of it. So it's usually 2 to 10%. And the police can use it over in the States as well. And it's considered, as we said, a personal defense weapon. But it can also be used in forms of bear spray, which Dwight would love. Because of course he's got. That's why he'll have it in his office, isn't it?
It's absolutely in case bears come to Dunder Mifflin. And so like in Pennsylvania, where the office is set, you can buy, carry, and use it if it's a self-defense product. So I think that we can assume that actually Dwight probably did get it through legal means.
Yes. Just
unlike some of his other strange weapons.
Yeah, and as Jennifer said, he has got them all over the office, and only Dwight would get away with having them in the office.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right. Okay, right. Hands up, everyone in the audience who is competitive about eating hot chilies. Are you someone who likes to grab a chili and wolf it down, or maybe you like to be in the Vindaloo Club and try and eat the hottest possible curry that you can? So you
I
will
am
be
not one of those people.
No, I'm not either. So you would have heard of the Scoville scale if you are someone who likes their hot chilies. So pepper spray actually has a very high score on this Scoville heat unit scale, and this basically measures the heat of the pepper. So shall we have some examples of what's on the scale so that you can have a look?
Yes,
please. Mark used to do that. Yes, yeah.
Only when I was younger. Maybe he had a bad experience with some Scoville, some high Scoville units.
High Scoville unit. So these Scoville heat units. So a bell pepper, which is like a normal pepper that you'd slice up and put in your stir fry, that scores 0, which I thought was a little bit odd because you'd think it have some level of, of the chemical in it, but it scores 0 on the heat scale. Now, jalapenos, which slightly hotter,
I like a good jalapeno, yeah.
Yeah, jalapeno, 2,500 to 5,000. So we jumped right up there to a huge number.
Yeah, so that makes me feel pretty. Yeah, I can handle that.
Good about that. Yeah,
up to 5,000. Wow.
So pepper spray. Let's see where that is on the scale. So this is the pepper spray that law enforcement officers in America use. Is anywhere between 500,000 and 2 million units. Now, if you've ever chopped chili and accidentally put a finger in your eye, which I've done, 2.5
Oh my
to
Lord.
5,000 of a sting, right? Times that by 100, 100? And that would
That's
give
nasty
you,
stuff.
that would give you the pepper spray value. I mean, that's horrific, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, not good at all. Do you know what to do, though, if you were sprayed with pepper spray, Emma? What would you do?
Absolutely, I do. So capsaicin or capsaicin, whatever we decided to call it, it doesn't dissolve in water. So actually washing it with water sometimes doesn't help and can actually push it further around you. So sometimes it's recommended that you use things like baby shampoo and milk or oil-based solutions. But that being said, if you get it in your eyes, like Roy definitely did, absolutely stick your face in water and wash your eyes out and, blink and generate tears and do everything you can to take it out of your eyes for sure.
Yeah, not
Or
bath yourself
take a
in
bath in milk, according to Jack.
I think
If
that's
you've got
gonna
that much milk around, crack on.
do
Yeah.
it. Because they had one of
The
those
problem is though, you're a bit blind. This is what I wonder. If you're experiencing temporary blindness, like
what are you pouring into
how
your
am I
bath?
finding the milk? How am I finding anything at that point? Yeah.
Just be in agony, wouldn't you? They did one of those Mythbusters programs actually about what's the best thing to eat if you've eaten something hot, and they came out with milk in the end was the best. So I suspect, but I can't imagine pouring milk into my eyes. I don't think that'd be very nice.
No, we're not suggesting that. We're not
No.
suggesting pouring milk into your eyes. Just to be clear.
Just on the skin. Just on the skin.
Yeah. Take contact lenses out and
yeah, definitely, and then do it. So basically they say, take the contaminated clothing off as quickly as possible, but carefully, so you're not spreading it around your skin and that kind of thing. And medical professionals will use things like saline or wipes to remove it from your skin.
And I mean, thankfully, the cast of The Office didn't need to do this because obviously they didn't use actual pepper spray. So Angela Kenzie and Jenna Fisher, who play Angela and Pam and are like best friends in real life, they have a podcast called Office Ladies where they have a look at every episode and share kind of like how they did things. And in the episode where they talked about this, they said that actually it was just water. It was a spray bottle full of water. So just some excellent acting.
So they didn't have to feel God in these Chillies tonight.
No. So let's.
Sometimes I think we put the science in order to get the quotes in. No,
sometimes we do. Honestly, sometimes we do. So let's head to season 5 next to see how our favourite branch is doing in episodes 1 and 2, weight loss.
Yeah. So we open this series with several new facial hairstyles. So this is the one where Ryan grows a little goatee, and he's copied by Michael and Andy, and they come in their little goatees as well. So actually, there is an evolutionary reason why you have beards, and there's an evolutionary use for these beards, and it's not what you might expect.
This is bonkers. This is genuine scientific research. Which we weren't expecting to find. So essentially, we've all heard of the Nobel Prizes, and these are prizes given out to kind of groundbreaking, life-changing discoveries in science. There's also something called the Ig Nobel Prizes, which is they're given out to basically pub science, not in the sense that they were done in a pub, but it's very serious, genuine research, but it's just all bonkers and it's all a bit of a laugh. So one of the categories that was awarded was given to a team of scientists who did that. They said exactly that. What's their research question? Is there an evolutionary reason why we have beards? And have beards evolved to protect us from getting punched in the face? Honestly, this was the question. So what they did was they kind of had a look at the fact that when human males fight, when humans fight, it's normally males, and males have the beards. And when they do fight, it's often hand-to-hand combat, and very often the target is the face. So we would have likely needed to evolve something to protect our face. So did you read this one?
Yeppers.
What did I tell you about yeppers?
Oh, okay.
So
basically, yeah, they get worse. Basically, what they did was they built a fake face. That's difficult to say, it turns out. So they built a composite that got a texture and density that was very close to, human bone structure. And
good spot, Mark. That was a quote. Yeah,
nice, well done. So they tested it. They tested the face, and what they did was and these are their words, they created a furred skin example and a sheared skin example. So in other words,
Yeah,
a
not
bearded,
hairless and shaved.
no, so
Sheared, like a sheep.
sheared, sheared
Interesting.
surface.
Yeah.
So they found that the hairy samples were capable of absorbing more energy than the hairless samples. So if you're a beardy hipster, then you're protecting your face against getting hit, which is great because your beard will ensure that it absorbs more energy than if you are beardless.
Brilliant. So, I mean, how fast were they hitting the composite?
Fast, somewhere between a snake and a mongoose.
And with this research, there are obviously suggestions linking this all to kind of testosterone levels, because often we believe that men with higher levels of testosterone will produce bigger and thicker beards, but also they're also likely to have been more or have a greater proclivity to fight. So if you've got more testosterone, you're more likely to fight, therefore you need a beard because you're more likely to get hit back.
Vikings.
Genius. Yeah. So we were saying, well, this is the thing. I don't think fun as the science is, I don't think the goatee that was sported by several members of the office is going to be doing anything. It is not attracting women, and it is not saving your face or your neck from a beard. From a punch. Absolutely.
You've got to go for the full Viking beard.
You do. You need full lower face, full neck protection, because as Dwight says, nostalgia is truly one of the greatest human weaknesses, second only to the neck. We've got to protect our necks.
Dinkin flicker.
It's a lovely Daryl quote there.
That's one of the weirdest ones.
Dinkin flicker. It is. It was when he was teaching Michael Scott kind of like hood phrases, and he just made them all up, and they're all total nonsense. It was really funny. Yeah. So I thought we had to get Dinkin flicker in.
Absolutely. So let's move from hairy men to hairy animals, shall we? There's a bit of a segue for you.
That was good.
Yeah,
didn't see that coming.
So we're going to talk about our feline buddies. Now, you can't see him, but he's in here with me as we speak. Is my little old fairy feline friend. And we know that Angela was absolutely obsessed with her cats. And if we go back to season 5, episode 17, this is called Lecture Circuit Part 2. This is the episode that divided viewers because Angela appears to wash her cats by licking them. I don't know if you remember this episode.
This was one of those ones which and as a lover of most episodes of The Office, but this is one that I just, like, it crossed a new level for me. I was not here for it. It's such a painful scene. So Angela basically sets up a nanny cam in her office at home so that she can watch her cats while she's at work. And she goes home on her lunch break and she's left it up on her screen. And Oscar and Kevin, the other accountants, just like, can you hear that? I think she's left it on, pops around to her desk and watch her. And she's talking to her cats and she's stroking her cats. And then she realizes that one of them is a bit dirty and starts to lick her cat. And it was just all a bit...
You know, if Michael Scott had been watching that footage, that there would have been a joke coming out there, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, horrible. Yes, yeah. Mark's pointed out something I told Karen earlier. According to that podcast that I mentioned earlier, Office Ladies Cats, she actually did have to lick one of the cats in one of the takes because it just wasn't convincing. Because they tried lots of different camera angles of her licking the cat, and they were like, "Look, it's just not working." And she was like, I'm gonna have to actually lick this cat now, aren't I? And so she did. One take, she licked the cat, and they used that one. What a day! What a day at work, eh? Your day. What a day at work. Yeah. No, thanks.
So for this one, we're going to go back to the Ig Nobles, one of our favourite research areas. And this is a 2021 Ig Nobel, and it was for biology. And this was awarded to a group that were looking at the variations in the noises that cats make. So, you know, purring, meowing, chirping, and other forms of cat-human communication specifically. So how cats try and communicate with their human owners.
Oh, so first of all, we don't fully understand how cats even produce the purring sound yet. It's the most recent research thinks that it's from a kind of a rapid twitching of the vocalis muscle, but actually you might think that cows. You might think that cats just imagine a purring cow. You might think that cats only purr when they're contented, and I don't have cats, but that was what I always assumed. But doing this research, it turns out they also purr when they're hungry or they're stressed, and sometimes it's also a behavioural signal to show that it's not a threat.
Yeah, so they also do it to try and appease you as well. So sometimes if you take your cat to a vet or something like that, and they're a little bit afraid, and they kind of want some kind of protection, or they want to show, that they're not a threat, they'll purr and try and appease you, which is quite interesting as well.
Hmm.
So how about these modes of cat-human communication then? What form do they take? So there are lots of different call types. So you've got chirping, purring, meowing, trilling, moaning, hissing, and growling. And the pitch and the melody will change. And quite often, if your cat is trying to get you to do something, they will keep changing the tone and keep changing, the pitch of it to try and get a sound that will get you to do whatever it is they want you to do. And what the team did is they looked at how the cat sounds are produced, how they're articulated. They analysed them. So they recorded all of these cat sounds and then analysed all the different types.
Basically the idea of this being, if you can get to a point where we can better understand what our cats are trying to communicate to us, we can improve kind of their welfare and their well-being. And this whole study, when I read it, it just screams Angela to me. Either she was leading it on the side, she's secretly a scientist, or she was one of the first people to sign up for those trials, bring her cats in, and end up trying to better understand what they were saying to her. Absolutely.
Yeah, some kind of cat-human chat. Because those of us who've had cats for a long time, you do feel like they're talking to you when they're trying to say, "Can I have some more food now, please?"
Well, now science says maybe they are.
So let's stay within the accountancy department, shall we? And we'll have a chat about Kevin and his stinky feet.
Kevin's stinky feet got mentioned in quite a few episodes. It was a fun runner that went all the way from the beginning to the end. But they really got their own storyline. If we have a look at the wedding episodes in series 6, this is Jim and Pam's wedding, and essentially Kevin leaves his shoes outside of his door when he's at the hotel, in the hope that the hotel staff will clean them for him. And he wakes up in the morning and they're gone, and he goes down to the front desk and they basically say to him, "I'm so sorry. They were so stinky. We had to dispose of them."
Incinerated, actually.
How bad must they have been?
Yeah, so he had to take a look at the science, obviously, at stinky feet, and try and look at why, why do our feet smell? So our bodies are home to more than 10,000 different species of bacteria. Some of those will live on the surface of our skin. And you think about things like staphylococci bacteria and brevibacteria. And what these do is they digest dead skin cells. So actually, they're quite useful for us by removing all these dead skin cells. But in the process of doing that, they produce a chemical called S-methyl thioesters as a byproduct. And these contain sulfur, and that's what causes the smell. So you'll know, like the rotten egg smell, that's caused by sulfur containing compounds. So anything that really smells strongly like that's likely to have sulfur in.
Yeah, and like you said, we get these types of bacteria all over our body, but in particular, they absolutely love our sweaty regions, and our feet get quite sweaty. So your sweaty feet basically are a moist, salty environment. It's filled with glucose, it's filled with amino acids, all these things that are coming out of the sweat, which feed the bacteria, allow them to thrive, which then means that even more of them produce even more of these fatty acids and these sulfur-containing compounds, and your feet get stinky.
Yeah, so best idea is to try and keep your feet dry, try and keep them, make sure they're not moist, and try and remove that environment that the bacteria love so much. So things like washing your feet regularly would be an obvious thing to do, but changing into dry socks makes a difference. And actually, you can buy socks that contain things like silver or zinc oxide nanoparticles. We all like a nanoparticle, which are antibacterial. So they'll prevent the bacteria from actually growing in your sweat. So even if your feet are sweaty, they're not necessarily stinky. So really useful for your workout trainers or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, trainers are one of the things that can definitely be popped in the washing machine. So you can remove all of the bacteria and the smell and the sweat that's gathered actually in those, and that can refresh them, give your feet a new lease of life. But a lot of people also say that maybe if you've got a proclivity for smelly feet, you should wear open-toed shoes, let those puppies breathe. But I argue that Kevin should not have worn open-toed shoes to the wedding. And actually, in fact, the tissue paper boxes that he ended up wearing were much more appropriate than Kevin in a croc, I think.
Yeah. AC's just mentioned that this all happens in the belly button too. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Oh, that would have been an even worse storyline, Kevin's belly button.
Yes, smelly belly button.
No,
smelly
thanks.
belly. Nice. So some of these bacteria are also responsible for the volatile chemicals that result in the stink we get from some types of cheese.
Mm.
So Limburger cheese apparently is a good example of the similar kind of smell to smelly feet because it's got similar bacteria in, and it
I've
produces the
never I
same
don't think I've
compounds.
ever had Limburger cheese, but I
No, I haven't.
know that for the rest of my days, if I ever see a Limburger cheeseburger on the menu or Limburger mac and cheese or something, I'm not going for it. I'm not going for it. And another fun fact, the malaria parasite apparently actually changes a mosquito's sense of smell so that they're more attracted to human odors, including the smell of smelly feet.
Yeah, and that's because the malaria parasite needs to get into the human body in order to be able to reproduce. So it needs the mosquito to be attracted to humans specifically so that it can reproduce.
Right, I'm going to steer us. We're continuing season 6, but we're heading to episode 23, body language. And this is item 5, point B, the beet juice cleanse.
Yes, and this is
This is one of my all-time favorite scenes.
It's
So
brilliant,
funny.
isn't it? Because it's the episode where Dwight and Angela have got this contract for having a baby, and there's a
Mhm.
whole list of points on it, and one of which is the beet juice cleanse. And in this scene, they're in the conference room and they're discussing the contract between them. And one of the clauses that Dwight's put in there is that Angela must participate in a beet juice cleanse. So to prove that she's been doing that, she shows her mouth. She opens her mouth to show that her teeth are red and her gums are all red because she's definitely been eating beetroot.
Oh,
Beetroot.
it was horrible.
Mm.
Absolutely horrible. So naturally, it's time for us to take a deep dive on beetroot, a
Mm.
vegetable with a sort of oaky afterbirth. So why might he actually want her to do a beet juice cleanse? Not just because he's the owner of a beet farm and maybe had some overstock, but it actually could be because of all the amazing health properties that beetroot has. It's fascinating. So there are betalainin pigments, which are the red pigments that give the beets that really deep color, but they're also fantastic antioxidants and they have anti-inflammatory effects. So that's 2 big ticks already. But if that wasn't enough, there are also loads of nitrates in beets, which have been shown to widen your blood vessels, which helps lower blood pressure and can increase your blood flow to the brain. Brilliant.
Yes. So my mum will be pleased. She loves a good beetroot.
Ah,
Dietary beetroot's been used as a therapeutic nutritional strategy to help control blood pressure or hypertension as a result. And if you think about it, that's quite cost effective, just eating your beets. So it might, if it reduces blood pressure or controls blood pressure, then that also will significantly reduce the impact of cardiovascular events. So things like heart attacks and that kind of thing. But obviously, all of that is very dependent on gender and genetics and that kind of thing as well. But it's definitely beneficial.
yeah. And a research team in Italy actually recently identified that these antioxidant pigments, when also combined with some of the other things that we find in beetroot together, they have an amazing cytotoxic capacity, which basically means that they can be used to kill or treat colon cancer cells in the body. So, I mean, one of the ideas is that using these compounds could actually be used as a chemopreventative tool against colon cancer. How
Which is
amazing is that?
quite amazing, isn't it? But what we need to be aware of is the fact that if you do eat lots of beetroots or drink lots of beetroot juice, there
Mm.
is a risk that your stools may become red as a result. And this is one of the other little taglines from Dwight. So in that same scene, he requests to see Angela's stools as proof that she's on the beet cleanse. So he says, "How do we know this? I'd like to see a stool sample."
Well, like my mum used to say, talk classy, act nasty. Bit of Meredith be there. No, so essentially, Dwight's kind of on the money with this one. There is some science behind it. He's not as bonkers as a lot of the rest of the show points out.
Mm.
It's all about these betalainin pigments. So normally they're broken down in the stomach or in the colon when they pass through you, but some people don't break it down, and often it's because they have high levels of something called oxalic acid. So if they're not being broken down, they're just going to continue to come out through you the other end.
Mm. And if you do pass a stool which is red and you're thinking, oh, is that the beet or is it blood? Because obviously if there's blood in your stools, that's a bit of a concern and you need to go to the doctor. So you're trying to determine, is that blood or is it beetroot juice? How do I know? Well, blood is heavier than beetroot juice. So the beetroot pigments will diffuse through the water faster, whereas the blood will be clumpier. So if you're staring at your stools for any reason, then you can tell the difference between blood and beetroot juice that way.
We're doing a real public service, I think, bringing this kind of science into everyone's lives. I think it's really important.
It is that you need to know that beets diffuse more than blood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And did you know actually beetroot is sometimes used to help you understand the digestive time or digestive transit time? So essentially what you do is you eat a load of beetroot all in one go and then no more, but you just continue to eat your meals regularly. Keep an eye on your poo. And when you see one pass that has got all this red tinge that indicates you've been eating beetroot, you can count the hours back from when you ate it. And then that way you know how long food is staying in your system. So you can kind of work out maybe whether you're a bit constipated or if you're kind of happy and everything's going pretty normally.
Yeah, and on average, 12 to 24 hours is the average transit time. If you're over 24 hours, it's likely you're constipated. So you need more fibre. Probably more beets, therefore.
More beets, more fibre. So we thought, fun little bit of homework for the audience. Whoomph us your number, or just tweet us at Small Screen Sci, perhaps. We thought, hey, listen, I want to know the number. I want to know the number of hours, but I want absolutely no more context. I'd like to be inundated with tweets just with a single number in over the week. That I think would be pretty fun.
That would be fun. But there is a bigger question around this, and that question is, will bears eat beets?
Only while watching Battlestar Galactica, I think. No, I genuinely tried to find this out, but I just got inundated with memes of this scene. So this is where Jim pretends to be Dwight. He turns up in a yellow shirt. He's parted his hair in the middle. He's wearing a similar version of Dwight's glasses. And he just sits opposite Dwight and he says, fact, bears eat beets. And just those few words have just gone everywhere on the internet, to the point that I cannot find research about whether bears will eat beetroot. I don't know.
You don't know, but it's very easy to find out, I'd have thought, because bears poo in the woods. So all we have to do is look at the stool sample and see if it's red. I don't see what the problem is.
I think the problem is following a bear around the woods waiting for it to poo. I don't think I'm coming on that field trip.
Oh, okay. Pass on that one.
Right. All right. That's it for this episode. We hope that we've left you satisfied and smiling. Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty more that we could have covered. Obviously, we could have looked at lice, alcoholism, rabies, the science of snow and snowmen, and actually the one we probably should have done, which is how paper's actually made. I don't know how we missed that one.
We got distracted by the poo chat. So
yeah, I think we did, yeah.
What I'm hearing is that we need to do another episode, which I'm very happy with, because then I can watch The Office again for maybe the 15th, 16th time. But for now, I think we'll just say thank you to all of you in the audience here at Cardiff Science Festival, and we'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yes, I mean, I love an early night myself. I mean, I don't mean to brag, but New Year's Eve, I was home by 9.
Very nice. And with that, okay, let's just run through all the show quotes. And then if you've got any question for us, you can pop them in the chat too, because we've got a few minutes left. We're happy to have a chat with you. So let's know how many of these you spotted. I've got a long list here. I have a lot of questions. Number 1, how dare you? Let's get ethical. That's what she said. Absolutely, I do. The eyes are the groin of the face. I feel God in this Chillies tonight. Yeppers. What did I tell you about yeppers? Fast, somewhere between a snake and a mongoose. Nostalgia is truly the greatest human weakness, second only to the neck. Dink and flicker. Rid-it-do. Oh. Incinerated, actually. Item 5, point B, the beet juice cleanse. A sort of oaky afterbirth. How do we know this? I'd like to see a stool sample. Like my mum used to say, talk classy, act nasty. Whoomph. Hope we left you satisfied and smiling. And I don't mean to brag, but New Year's Eve, I was home by 9.
So that's a huge list. So for more from us, if you search for Small Screen Science on your social media or on your favorite podcast platform, you can listen back to some of our older episodes, which I'm sure you'll enjoy.
Absolutely. We've looked at things like Killing Eve, Line of Duty, Silent Witness, Blue Planet 2, Bake Off, Red Dwarf, Friends, Stranger Things. There's something for everyone. There's a wide range of TV in our repertoire.
Random telly. So thanks very much for listening. And as we said, if you've got any questions in chat, then we're happy to answer them. But thank you very much.
We've had one asking, what about white poop? Are we sounding like Gillian McKeith now? I have no idea what the science of white poo is, but rest assured, as soon as this is over, I'm going to be Googling and adding some other really weird things to
So
my
Mark's, yeah, to your
search
list.
history. That is a great question, Mark. What is
Favourite
our favourite
episode?
episode?
Oh, goodness.
Oh my gosh, I should have come prepared for that one. That's a wonderful decision. So you've picked Threat Level Midnight, which is fantastic. And recently they released the full film of Threat Level Midnight. So if you haven't seen that, go and find that online. You can watch the whole cut of it as it's not in an episode. I've got to admit, I absolutely loved the wedding episode with Jim and Pam. It was a two-parter, but it just gave everyone really nice, fun storylines. What about you, Karen? Is there anything that stands out for you?
I like the beetroot one. I like the the contract between them when they're trying to work out about having the baby. That's the one that
Do
stands
you know
out.
what? Any time we went to Dwight's house, I absolutely loved. There was the one where he threw a garden party, and Jim, the prank was that he wrote a book on the etiquette of how to throw a garden party. And then Dwight was doing all of these ridiculous things like dancing and announcing people. And I just, any prank episode, I think, and any time we went to go and see Dwight's farm, I loved. Oh, and the Dundies as well. We've got a shout out. The Dundies were always good.
Yes. So what are your Dundies, everyone? We haven't heard yours because I'm the geekiest nerd, and you had the Jim Halpert Award. So
Yeah, well, I'm not showing you my feet again. Yeah. Okay. So AC. So liver or gallbladder issues. Apparently, that's what gives you white poo. What an interesting. Well, we've learned something tonight.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Mark says the full movie is really good, so that sounds good.
It's very good. It's very good.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for coming, guys. We appreciate it, and we hope to see you next year. Yes. I'm just inviting us back to Cardiff Science Festival.
If you want to have a look at our last year's episode, we did Killing Eve last year. So have a look on our website. www.
Jennifer got the Dundee that I think I need. Her husband gave her the Dundee for office knowledge. Yes.
Amazing.
Karen, I'm putting in a formal request.
Oh, Mark as well. Met at work.
Oh, fantastic.
Wow. That's amazing.
Gives me hope. I like hearing when people meet in kind of normal situations.
Yeah, that's lovely. Any more questions? If not, thank you very much for coming. We'll give you a wave to say goodbye. So thank you very much, everyone.